So my story is mostly about all the people that helped me along the way. And there's a lot of them, and I'll mention a few that helped me in my career, and I wouldn't be standing here today without them. So here we go. I was born in the Bronx in New York City. My dad was a New York City homicide detective, NYPD. My mom worked as a waitress. My very first job in life was selling peanuts and hot dogs in Yankee Stadium at the age of 13. So I started with Shell in '81 here in Houston when Wood Creek, which is now torn down, was first opened. I worked for a guy named Jim Clement. Jim was manager of the Rocky Mountain Division, and I learned more working for Jim in 3 years than probably anyone, technically, from any one period in my entire life. Because Jim was the kind of guy, he never told me what to do, other than saying, you're going to work the Powder River Basin. But he would come in my office, he'd sit down, he'd put his feet up on my desk, and he'd start asking me all kinds of questions. Asking me if I had looked at certain pieces of data, if I had read certain articles, if I had talked to certain people. And it was his way of me to get self-discovery about what it meant to be an exploration geologist. And he constantly did it. And it was, once a week we'd have these chats, but it was forming stuff in my brain. He was helping me learn on my own how to be an explorer. And he was a lovely human being and extremely helpful in getting me to understand the nuts and bolts of the exploration business. And it was absolutely terrific. And then in the end, I was region manager for Latin America. But the president of Pectin, his name was Bruce Bernard. Bruce wanted me to go to South Texas to be an asset manager. And he says, that's the next step in your career, Bill. And I said, well, Bruce, that's not the next step in my career. I want to either go to The Hague and work in the New Ventures group in Royal Dutch Shell, because by this time Shell and Royal Dutch and Shell Oil were coming together, or I want to go to London and work in the economics group. And I knew both of those jobs were open, and I knew both of the leaders would be happy to have me, because I had done some spade work for this. And Bruce said, no, Bill, sorry, you're not going to do that. And so I said, well, then I got to look at my hold card. And he said, you do whatever you want. So I reluctantly quit Shell and went to work for Marvin Davis. Now, some of you probably don't know who Marvin Davis is, so let me do a little bit of explanation. So Marvin was a billionaire, and he's a very big guy, right? 6'3", 300 pounds. He was no small potatoes. This is a big man. But Marvin made all his money by selling his production in 1980 to Dome Petroleum for $600 million. And then Marvin took that $600 million and bought 20th Century Fox. And then he sold Fox off in pieces and then took the television and movie company and sold it to Rupert Murdoch, and that made Marvin a billionaire. And then Marvin wanted to start an international oil and gas company, and he wanted me to run it. And so I quit Shell to go work for Marvin Davis. And Marvin taught me something that the private equity firms are teaching me now. I'm going to give you $1, Bill, and you're going to give me $3 back. And if you're going to walk into my office and talk to me about a venture, if you can't walk in here confident that you're going to give me $3 back for the $1 of my hard-earned money that I'm giving you, then don't even talk to me. I get it. I stayed with Marvin only a year and a half. The reason, hold on, it gets better. So that was that, and so I did learn something from Marvin. Believe me, a lot of lessons. So I left Marvin, and I had a headhunter before I went to Marvin was trying to get me to go to Texaco, and so I went and had breakfast actually, at a health club with Bruce Applebaum, and Bruce and I hit it off fairly well, and we're still friends today. And he said, well, why don't you come here? We want to have someone for Central Asia and all that. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So I went to Texaco. I spent almost 7 years in Texaco. What both of them got me, they helped me being an executive. John especially, because John was all about goals and objectives and setting goals and objectives that was going to stretch an organization. And how do you do that? And how do you reach down to lots of people to make sure that everyone's aligned and all that? He taught me an awful lot about that. And John was also about what gets measured gets done. That was his big thing. And so I only spent a year in Houston, and the rest of my time with Texaco was in London. And I was basically on my own in London in many ways. And so I got to put all that to the test, and it really worked. And those two guys were real big support and helped me a lot. It's not like we didn't fight and have arguments and all that kind of stuff. We did, especially with John. But the two of those gentlemen really helped me learn how to become an executive, which I didn't really have before. And that's how it happened. So I went to work for Statoil in February of '02, and it was like a blank slate. There was, at that point in time in Statoil, there was absolutely almost zero international exploration. They were drilling a few wells in Angola from the BP Statoil Alliance days, and a handful of wells in Norway, and that was it. Because exploration had been de-emphasized in the downturn of the late 90s. And so it was a clean slate. I could take everything I learned from Shell days, from crazy times with Marvin, and from my time at Texaco, and put it to work in Statoil, which was, so Statoil went from not on the map in international exploration to all over the place. We entered Brazil, here in the US, Canada, did more in Angola, did more in Nigeria, Libya, and Algeria, Egypt, Faroes, UK, Tanzania, Indonesia, China. All of that happened in the 8 years that I was, almost 9 years that I ran exploration. And that portfolio carried through to the years that my friend and colleague took over for me, Tim Dotson, who still has the same job, and to drill all kinds of great discoveries all over the world. So it was a fantastic time. It really was. At that time, Statoil was producing 75,000 barrels equivalent a day, and had just started in the onshore as a non-operator. When I left that job, Statoil was producing 300,000 barrels equivalent a day. We're in Eagle Ford, Marcellus, as well as the Bakken. Have 8 fields in deepwater Gulf of Mexico, 6 of which right now are on production at over 100,000 barrels a day by themselves. We had a big oil sands business and a sizable growing business on the east coast of Canada. So that was a big job. $4.5 billion a year in capex, capital expenditure for a year, thousands of employees. So it was a big deal. Helge, and his part in this mentor story of people that helped me, Helge taught me how to be a CEO in many, many different ways. Things that I didn't know about how to operate and run an organization of that size and that magnitude. He also instilled in me a sense of social responsibility as a leader of of a group like that. I mean, I got the constant speech of you're not just the leader of North America, you're representing Statoil, you're representing Norway, you're here, we have a certain ethos about who we are, what we are, and you have to embody that, both as a person and as an organization. And that, many different ways, Helge helped me, not only being a CEO, but being a responsible CEO, if I can put it that way. So Eldar comes in, and then the whole damn conversation starts all over again. Bill, don't you want to stay? And I said, Eldar, I love you too, but no thank you, I'm gone. So I left within 30 days. I turned 60 in October of 15, and I left in September of 15. So that was the end of Statoil for me. I still wanted to work, but I wanted to do it my way, not anybody else's way, so I still do work. And as Charles said, I'm an advisor to Warburg Pincus, which is a private equity firm, and they got the same ethos as Marvin. I'm going to give you $1, you got to give me 3 back. That happens to all their companies. I serve on 2 of the boards of directors, and I'm still on with AEPG as well as U of H on the Energy Advisory Board. So I'm going to stop there, but I've got some advice. There is no one path to anybody's career. just from the two stories that you heard from us. Everyone's career, no matter who you are, what you do, takes a different road. And there will always be surprises. There will be unexpected twists and turns. It happens to all of us. So keep your eyes wide open for all the change. Ask broadly for advice. Keep your circle, Susan said something simple, keep your circle big, not small, and ask all different kinds of people for advice. Trust the people that are closest to you. They won't steer you wrong. And be true to yourself. Because I found in many of the decisions that I made in my career that when it felt good, when I was true to what I believed in as a human being, then that usually worked out well. One more piece of advice. In my view, you will never be successful in anything. Personal life, business life, and the blur lines in between, without having both skill and will. And let me tell you what I mean by that. You could be the smartest individual in the world. That's nice. But if you don't have willpower, persistence, and perseverance, you're not going to succeed. Because stuff is going to knock you down every step of the way. And so having both the will and the skill is extremely important. Susan said honing your craft, absolutely, but understanding what you do and being as good as you can be at it is quite important. But sticking with it, working through tough times, being persistent and persevering through both good and bad, it has helped me tremendously. And I gotta say, every great successful person that I know, all the men and women that I mentioned in my talk tonight, they all had that quality in one way or another. And so I think that can help you along the way. And that's where I'll stop. Thank you all for being so patient.